the very same Wuhan Institute of Virology that caused this pandemic, Trudeau sent them nearly $1 million after the pandemic. This wasn't sending money there beforehand, before we knew. Trudeau sent them nearly $1 million afterwards, and I can't even believe it. And that scoop was brought to you by our friend Sheila Gunn Reid, who joins us now via Skype from Edmonton. Sheila, how you doing?
Hey, I'm really good. Just before I jumped on camera with you, I found out that Fox News linked back to my work, which is very exciting. It's interesting how quickly our American friends will see an enormous story breaking right in front of them, while our Canadian colleagues, I suppose might be the right word, they're sort of doing their best to ignore this international story.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're so right on that. I mean, it is, objectively speaking, a shocking story. I know that the United States put some money into handling that virus center, but that was, if I'm not mistaken, before things went sideways. And you go into that in your video about how the U.S. sent diplomats and they were worried that it wasn't up to snuff, and they sent science diplomats. So I think that was all beforehand. Only Trudeau would send money to China as if they need our money after the pandemic, and as if any Chinese science can be trusted. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of how this became a pandemic that is shutting down entire national economies, separating us from our loved ones, and causing our municipal governments to act like tyrants and strip us of our civil liberties. It's directly due to the fact that the Chinese government actively muzzled scientists and doctors who were trying to warn the world. And those doctors were working in hospitals. They were, seeing the first patients and seeing the spread as it was spreading from person to person, while the Chinese government was saying, oh, no, it's not spreading person to person. And then the Canadian government was also repeating that Chinese propaganda. So how are we, first of all, to trust any research coming out of the very lab that likely birthed this virus? But also, where's the oversight? How do we know that this is even going to the thing that they say it's supposed to go to, and that's rapid testing, which incidentally already exists? But how do we know that it's not going to fund some sort of biological weapon research? We really don't know. We're just supposed to trust the Chinese Communist government when they say they're doing with our money that they don't need what they say they're going to do with it.
Yeah, it's really crazy. You said something earlier about how Americans pick up our story faster than our Canadian, I think you said colleagues, I think rivals or competitors might be a different word. It's funny because every day Justin Trudeau has a very softball press conference. It couldn't be more opposite from the Trump press conference every day, where basically journalists line up trying to outdo each other in insulting or gotcha-ing him. I don't think they succeed, but they obviously do, since they keep doing it. Compare that to the absolute tongue bath that Trudeau gets because he shuts out rebel news reporters. I would send you or Kean or David Menzies or even go myself in a second. He won't let us there. And my point being, all right, fine. So let's find the news where it is. The news actually is probably not going to be broken by Justin Trudeau because he's not really in the driver's seat. He's sort of lazing about at home for the last month. So it's not like those press conferences, there'll be any source of news there. So the fact that we're banned from his press conference, it's like when we're banned from those global warming UN events that you always go to. In a way, I mean, I'm not going to say it's good to be banned, but it forces you to do some real reporting. Same here. We've done some real reporting. I should tell you, Sheila, that I've had 2 private contacts from rival journalists who talk to me privately, but I don't want to name them publicly because they'll get in trouble with their bosses. I believe that at least 2 other journalists in Canada are following up on your scoop. Now, whether or not they'll give you credit for breaking it is a completely different matter, but both of them told me they're following you, which is, I think, their way of saying good on Sheila.
Well, we do something that other journalists generally don't do. So when we have access to information documents, or we find documents that are sitting on a government website somewhere, which is how we got this. It was out there. It wasn't something that we had to ask for. We just had to be curious enough to find it. And that's how we came across it. But when we have documents, or when we find these things on these government websites just hanging to be plucked off the information tree, we link back to it. We show everybody our source documents so that they can check for themselves. And I don't just mean the public check for themselves. I think this information is important information that all Canadians should have, so that they can make appropriate decisions about the competency of our government. And I'm happy, and I don't need the credit. I'm happy that there are other journalists, rival journalists, willing to take the information we found and the sources we linked to and run with it. The more eyeballs that get on this work, I think the better it is for the Canadian public. So I don't get too uptight about the fact that they don't link back to my work the way the world's largest cable news network did for me today, which is kind of personally exciting. And I wish I had spent more time on my appearance now that video is going to go viral.
Oh,
but
Sheila, you're
whatever.
fine.
Live and learn. Live and learn.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.